This episode is dedicated to bridging the gap. We often have conversations on where are the youth and how do we connect with the youth. So this episode will do just that. Welcome to the Cleveland Pulse. I'm your host, Edwin Hubbard Jr., and I am excited to welcome a very special guest in Kayla Lowery. Kayla, welcome to the podcast.
Thank you so much for having me.
So tell us a little bit about yourself, who you are. Shout out to you being a recent college graduate, but just tell the audience who you are.
All right, cool. So I'm Kayla, like you said, recent graduate from Bowie State University, smaller HBCU over in Bowie, Maryland. But born and raised in Cleveland. I've been very active in Cleveland from my family, just like raised without even thinking about it. I've always been surrounded by so much. But as I've been able to go to like college, I've just been able to grasp so much of the world around me. So it's like in high school, I started out with SCORE, student groups on race and relations. So I was always working with like younger students and stuff like that, seeing that interest, working with the community, but then even going up to school, like I did so much there. So I'm doing everything. I'm active. I'm happy to be back in Cleveland. Yeah.
And Cleveland welcomes you back.
Yes.
I love the fact that you graduated from an HBCU and you're a homegrown product, and that the fact that you came back home. We lose so much talent after college, right? And
yeah,
so
I wasn't expecting to either. I was gonna originally go down south. I really wanted to go keep like going with the HBCUs, go down south. But then honestly, as it started to get closer to like graduation, I was like, Cleveland, like I need to come back. So
one of the major interests in having this conversation with me, for me, was about talking to and bridging the gap between the younger generation to our current generation. I'm a millennial, and I was used to being the youngest person in the room, but not anymore. There is that next generation after the millennials, and then there's the youth, as I have children. And conversations on, who the organization in terms of the NAACP is and what civil rights and what social justice means is different to everybody. Mm-hmm. So this conversation is near and dear to my heart, and it was important to have a young person to kind of get into your mind and understand, where you first started to learn about social justice, how you got to where you are, and how you make informed decisions. So let's back it up a little bit. When was the first time in your memory that you could remember understanding what the NAACP was?
Understanding what the NAACP was, I feel like I've heard about it in school. I've had conversations with some folks. Fortunately, at Shaker, I did get the opportunity to have a college course, African Americans, class. We were able to talk about all the different organizations and, folks who were inside of our nation who were helping, bringing that better cause. But it wasn't really until college when I really sat down and was like, okay, what is this group actually doing? So it was with that, I was able to, join from freshman year. I was just a general body member, coming to meetings, showing up to the tablings, just doing whatever it was. But even as I have matriculated through Bowie, I was able to then end my school year with being on the actual e-board, which was our reactivation of it all. So with that, it was more so learning what really was NAACP. So with that, we were able to see at Bowie State, our NAACP chapter actually played a really big part in some of the laws that were actually brought in Maryland, because we did have it was a hate crime at the school UMD, where he was a veteran and was taking other classes. He went to Bowie State, but was taking some classes at UMD and was hate crimed and actually killed by some UMD students. Exactly. So with that, our unit at that time, this was in 63, or my dates might be off, but I won't lie, but it was pretty a while ago, whatever. But we actually had created a law for him where we were able to, stop hate crime and stuff like that, especially on cross college campuses. So being able to just hear that knowledge, I'm like, wow, not only are them as a organization doing large things, but also on college campuses is giving students that voice. So we were then able to truly learn what it means to have be a a unit, because it can kind of get mixy coming from HBCUs and, you know, having different organizations. Everybody wants to be president. Everybody wants to, you know, be a miss, be a mister. But in reality, that's not how the actual like NAACP functions. So it's like we are a unit. Every person that we are bringing in here is a part of our unit. Let's make something work. So it was like after we learned that, figuring out how we're going to like, you know, collaborate with our campus and actually do something. So,
you know, I love that because I often say like the NAACP and the college campus is for a lot of students, its first taste is like civil activation, right? It was for me when I got to college and I saw that pamphlet and I was like, you know, I heard about the NAACP before growing up. But like, you know, now there's a chapter on campus and there's something I can get involved with. I thought it was something I wanted to be a part of at that time.
Yeah.
And for many of us, that's just, you know, where it was. So let's talk about civic engagement. You know, we are in a time where it's now more important than ever that we are using our voices to not only vote, but just make the world hear how we feel about the conditions that we live in. When do you first remember being civically engaged and knowing that it was important to use your voice?
I mean, I was born into civic engagement, honestly. Like, even the more I learned about my family history, genuinely those that came before me, like, you know, so my father's side, he's like from like Miles Heights. So folks that know that area, like I've just recently really learned that the general creation of Miles Heights was like, you know, my family was some of those foundational members. So even with that, like going all the way now to present day, my uncle, I've spoken about that, you know, he is currently on death row right now in the state of Ohio, but he is completely falsely accused. Like it has been proven that he did not do it, that those that made statements saying, hey, there's no way this 21-year-old kid did this crime, but then also flipped and then them go, okay, he did do this crime and now they're free. And it's also just like, you know, so much. So I was very young within the court system, seeing that, witnessing that, and just seeing how easy a life can just be put away. And then also seeing that then aftermath of the family having to deal with that emotion. So that was definitely just like early entrance into it all and just knowing like something is off. And it's like, if this is supposed to be such a large system, it's like, what is going on here? So, yeah.
I mean, that's a good enough reason than any, right? You know, family, it impacts us. And that's the reason that you started to understand, hey, I have a role to play in this. And so because of that, you got involved you're interested in law. And you're studying law. And I understand that you may even potentially go back and become an attorney.
Yeah, so I am studying for the LSAT right now, taking that in June. But yeah, that definitely brought my interest in law. I mean, just like I knew at the end of the day, I wanted to do something regarding laws, not even understanding truly what that meant. And even to this day, still learning and grasping what that means, because it can be so broad. And so it's just all over the place. So doing that, like, that definitely has grown my interest and made me like, how can I get in those rooms? And then also not even get in those rooms, but be knowledgeable on what needs to be known. So
you said something early that interested me, and I have to ask the question. Why was it important for you to attend the HBCU?
LOL. I was laughing about this. I was honestly thinking about this morning because my instant joke of why I attended a HBCU was because I did go to Shaker. I played on the tennis team there. So both varsity, JV, all of that. But with that, I kind of was like, I would like a 4-year break. That was it. I was like, if I play tennis and I've lived in Ohio all my life, I would like a 4-year break. And, you know, even though that was a joke, the reality of it was being able to come onto a HBCU campus and you see all the varieties of Black people like walking down my campus. It could be 8 a.m. in the morning and it's like you got your friends on the yellow benches, they got their speakers, they set up, you don't know what they doing, but they just chilling, having a good time. Then you got like, you know, your band geeks, they woke up early, 6 a.m., they already out, got their stuff. Then it's like suited folks, like, you know, folks who dress all the way to the nine. So just being able to see that. And then it's like also then we're having those classes. Like I've had some really difficult classes that the reason why it was easy was because we were learning the information in language that we're comfortable with. So, you know, it can take a lot for us to like speak, you know, a certain way. But when it comes to education, and it's like we are trying to get this like information broken down so we can understand it. Having a teacher who respected like a little slang, not saying something properly and still being like, okay, but that answer was correct though. And we're all being like, yes, good job. Like, wow. So like, just definitely like those opportunities definitely is what made me want to go to HBCU.
I love talking about HBCUs because they're just so rich with culture. I graduated from Cleveland State University, which, I'm proud of my degree from Cleveland State University, but there is a part of me that like wishes and longs that I had gone to an HBCU, only because when I have the opportunity to visit and I see such school pride, right? It's like seeping out of everything, the school pride and the connections that people have around. When you see the HBCU grads, they light up.
For sure.
They light up, and that's just something I haven't seen. I mean, you do have some big colleges, some predominantly white institutions that people really get excited about. Like in Ohio, you talk about Ohio State, people go crazy, right?
Yeah, that's honestly what I was thinking about, like just those large schools. But I can definitely say for that HBCU conversation, like I was just having a conversation with somebody from my church. It was an older lady. She was like, yeah, okay, you graduated. Period. Good job. My granddaughter, she's about to graduate, high school, about to go to college. She wants to go to HBCU. I'm asking her, why do you want to do that? So I'm like, why wouldn't she want to do that? So the girl was like, I just started listing a bunch of kind of just propaganda and not really anything. And something that really stuck out to me was her saying that like her granddaughter was very nervous and timid. So she was like, why would she want to go be around basically a bunch of Black people if she feels timid? And I was like, so she needs an HBCU. Like, that's basically what you're saying. Because I've experienced, fortunately, I was very active in school. So in my time there, I did participate in something called NSO, New Student Orientation. So it was basically like they would bring in the freshmen, transfer students, anybody that's new to Bowie. They would get to the campus a week before the campus opens up, and everybody comes in, and they get a week to learn the lay of the land, get to meet the resources, and then just experience the campus and meet their new class. So with that, I've met many students who at that time were very quiet, sitting in the back, weren't hanging out with people. And I mean, because we literally saw them, noticed them, which you might not get noticed depending on where you're at, we were able to be like, hey, push them. And now it was by the end of the school semester, she had joined one of the largest model teams on campus. She was like active. She would be at all the functions. I'm like, okay, girl, like you go. And I always tell people like it will, specifically at my school, like it was so easy to make friends. Like if you're walking down a promenade, you could literally be like, I love your shirt. And someone's like, thank you. I love your shirt. And now every time y'all see each other, y'all just like, hey. And then it turned into y'all bumping each other, like, bumping into each other at the student center, eating in the lunchroom together, like, so it's super easy to just find your community, to find your people. And then also, we literally have so many variations. Like, literally, I was hanging out queer people that are interested in politics, people that just literally anything. Like I was able to learn how to DJ. I was like, I want to DJ. All of a sudden bumped into somebody who was like, I don't want my board anymore. Was able to get that for a cheap price. Then I was like, man, I need a coach. One of my line sisters ended up bumping into somebody who she knew for years, who I was like, he's one of the best DJs at campus. He took me under his wing, and literally like, I would be nowhere that I am now without him. And it's literally because of the experience and the family that was given from my HBCU, like uncles, aunties, all that. So
you said two things, and I would be remiss if I didn't acknowledge the sorority that you were part of, because it happens to be the sister sorority to my fraternity.
Yes. And I am a part of Delta Sigma Theta Sorority Incorporated. Oop.
And so, so how did you choose Bowie State?
I mean, I just knew I wanted to get out of state. I was like truly towards the end of it, I was between Bowie State and Virginia State. Again, I just wanted to get out of state. My parents were like, okay, if you want to get out of state, you got to play tennis. Okay, so I really fell in love with like the coaches. But what really got me was during the time of me picking my college was like at the peak of COVID. So literally it was during that time, everybody's off work. My mom would just be like, okay, let's go to this school. And we would just take a road trip and just go. So it was literally, campuses are shut down. So specifically this time we went to Bowie State and Virginia State, and we made it like a little weekend trip. And it was like broke into both the campuses. We were not supposed to be on there. We parked in the back lot and we was running from security. But we get there and it was just the energy that I had from Bowie State's campus compared to Virginia State's campus was so much different, specifically just for me. Like it was what I needed. And then also one of my selling points of Bowie State was 25 minutes away from DC, 35 minutes away from Baltimore, and then a train directly on campus that gets you anywhere. And it was $7 ticket. So it was like, I definitely made and took access to everywhere that I was near. I was going to New York all the time. I had some gigs in New York. Like, I would literally do stuff like all the time. We would be in Jersey. Like, we would just be anywhere that was close, 3 to 4 hours away. We like, all right, let's go. Like,
sounds like you had an absolutely amazing college experience. And I think that's important for young people to know as they're going through the process of selecting colleges, just to keep in mind that HBCUs are phenomenal options and should be taken fully into consideration.
Not for it. Something I'll say is, every single school you go to is going to have their problems. And definitely something that has grown my advocacy and just overall like showing up to the task has been, if you have a complaint about something, do something. Those at my school say if you have a concern, everybody's sitting in. We had this app called Fizz. If you ask HBCU students, everybody knows about Fizz. No matter the campus, literally have something Fizz. Everybody's like, oh, this is the worst event. Da-da-da-da. Are you there? Okay, or you're at the event. Did you get up? Like, were you dancing? You were waiting for other people to dance. And then when folks were dancing, you were, so just gaining that, like being able to advocate and speak for that. So HBCUs are great, but every single school has their issues. And if you approach one that does, do something about it. Because that's what I did.
That's my take on life as it pertains to community and politics, right? If you have a problem with something, do something about it. Make your voice heard. Get engaged, find committees and places that you can serve so you know what's going on so you can properly apply yourself to the situation that make a difference. So let's fast forward. Now you've completed college, getting ready to take the test for law school, but you're a college graduate, you're home, you're engaged. What does life look like now? So as a college graduate, are things much different now than when you left? Is the way you consume information or view the world, is it different than when you left?
I don't think it's any different. Honestly, when I was leaving, and I really did have a very strong urge to leave because I felt like I was having the same conversations with people whenever I was going to stuff. And especially when it came to like COVID was like when I really sat down, took that time of like isolation and like really looked at myself and was just like trying to figure out who it was, who am I like inside my house and what do I want to do to the world and all of that good stuff. So with that kind of just like I started to have more like adult conversations that a lot of my friends weren't ready for. So it was like, I kind of didn't have an outlet for that. So then going to college, I was able to like, meet people, have those conversations, stuff like that. And really the only thing that has changed has been my love for Cleveland has just grown intensely like crazy. Like it would be a joke on campus where like, they're yelling out, who's from New York? Who's from Baltimore? And then here's me in the crowd, who's from Ohio? Yeah! Like, just like saying stuff. But yeah.
Where do you consume most of the information? So about like current events and things that are happening right now, where do you get your information? Where's your trusted source?
Trusted source is a book. Trusted source is a book. At the end of the day, for me, my goal has always been in this education race has been going all the way back, like just from the root, like what is this issue? Like, what is it? What's going on? So there's that. Of course, okay, you see social media, but you always have to fact check because it's sometimes just like, grabs and things of that nature. But then also communicating to those around me. I speak to a lot of adults. I speak to those who are like-minded. So it's like, even if we're having conversation and something comes up, like we're quick to research it and figure it out and dive deep into that. Like, what is that? And again, going all the way to the roots. Like so many books I have are like the start, like literally the start. Like, so yeah.
So going to an HBCU, is rich with history, right? So I'm sure you've learned a lot about Black history. And right now, Black history is under attack in the United States. How does it make you feel to know that the history that you learn is they're literally trying to erase it?
Man, it's more so just like, well, just because I've come from a place where I have been trying to do a lot of education and understanding the backing of it all. And honestly, earlier in my reading, one of my favorite quotes, or not even favorite quotes, but some that I do reference often is James Baldwin, specifically talking about like the white community. And he's kind of saying like, you can't feel like bad or you can't like be like hurt by them. you have to more so feel bad in a sense of their ignorance. For those that are like, racist and things of that nature, shout out to everybody else. But anyways, for those that are, because that is their identity, that is their understanding of like the world, like their life is about superiority. So it's like literally if they are not superior than anybody else, like, you know what I mean? If their culture is about literally the act of, because, of course there were people, Germans, the Irish, everybody else like that. But after they gave that up and turned into just like, the white hand, it was like, what did you have? So really just understanding that and understanding that history of it all the way from like indentured servants, we were cool with them. Indentured servants and slaves were cool until white people were like, wait a second, like the indentured servants is realizing that they homies with the slaves. Let's give them some, some land. Let's get them some things and stuff like that. So it's just like a plague, and also like they're not knowledgeable. So understanding that standpoint is definitely something. But then also just that time of like, just seeing everything. Like I love psychology as well. Everything is just trauma response. So just like, you don't want to hear it, you don't want to see it, get rid of it. And it's like when you have the legal power to be able to change that, because somebody's going to hold you accountable. Because like, what do you do when it's like you gave reparations to everybody, but you can't give it? And then even then, of course, that's a crazier conversation because like in reality, how do you? And that goes to a whole paper I wrote about the 40 acres and a mule and all that good stuff. But it's just like, well.
So I respect the response. As the future continues to hold or change, what do you desire to see in the community right now that you don't currently see?
A strive for education. That's always been one of my big things. Is I want people to realize like all of this stuff that is being put in your face is literally calculated to be placed as such. So why is it that you're only seeing this? So like for those that maybe are only seeing like, baddies, for example, like whatever, why is it that that's the only thing that's being placed on your feed? It's fun in games, but there are real things going on in this world. Why are you disconnected from the real things going on in this world? So definitely just like that strive for education. Also, really just like respecting community. Like duality exists. You can agree to disagree. You can understand and be confused. Like, so even with anything, understanding that at the end of the day, everybody has trauma. Everybody is trying to get over something, guilt, whatever it is, it just exists. Like I literally am always just telling people, just exist. Literally, if you don't know what to do, exist.
What about the things that you can say? Like, what advice do you have to offer to this next generation following behind you?
To the next generation, I just say continue to do research. Fortunately, I do have like a younger brother who would be like, that generation under me. And sometimes I do find myself having assumptions of maybe how his thought process is. But then I kind of can just see like, he is just a kid. So it's just like from that kid's standpoint where it's just like I don't have to, be in survival in that point. I don't have to exist or like think like that. Like, OK, it's that deep. But like, why am I thinking that deep? Where I'm like, think deep all the time. So just like having an understanding of the reality in which we are in, and understand that this world that we are in existed before you. So it's like you genuinely have to sit down and take time and look back at that, history, because history does not repeat, it rhymes. So it's like we only are existing in the same stuff because folks are making the same mistakes. And now we have all this technology. You're just more distracted, more confused. And it's literally created as such. It's meant to, make us feel depleted, to make us not want to show up to the task, to be overwhelmed and things like that. When it's like, it's only a few people doing a few things. They got their plans. Y'all all over the place. They're set. So
how important is it for you to raise awareness in this next generation?
It's very important for me. I mean, it's definitely just something that has just beyond. I've always been interested, but now I am at the stage where I do actually want to speak to people. I do want to, try and educate folks, and also just like continue to learn myself. But being able to speak to people and just be able to just simply share, like, y'all gotta do what y'all gotta do. What if I said repeat the question? What was the question?
So like the things that you want to share with the upcoming generation, like the advice that you have for this generation coming behind you, and the things that you want to see.
Okay, yeah. So basically, like, just advice, like, honestly, don't be so overwhelmed, I guess, is honestly where I would be at. Because definitely the way that I learned a lot of stuff, I did just kind of hand myself and I just went straight in, like going for the craziest book with everything. And I definitely do still find myself on like an existential, like, you know, point. But also sometimes when I find myself talking to my friends or those younger than me, I do have to tell myself, like, pause, don't be fearful. Just understand this is the reality of the situation we are in. It's unfortunate, but it's what's happening. And it's like, not everybody is your friend, but then also, like, you know what I mean? If you can respect community, there's people that will actually lift you up. So just being able to have that discernment, being able to just know when to exist. I was just about to say that, like, when to exist, when to fall back, when to simply just like watch and listen and learn. It's just, yeah.
Very wise words from a younger person. You know, I am thoroughly impressed just by listening to the thoughts that you've had and the development that you had after going to an HBCU and just being a homegrown product. I think it's really important. It's not lost on me how aware you are and the things that you are focused on moving forward. I'm the person that says it's going to take us all. Sure. This is not just a one-person problem. It's not a one-person thing, and it's going to take everybody who needs to have a seat at the table in order to move this entire thing forward. Mm-hmm. And we have to start with the young people, because whether you like it or not, you are not just our future, but you all are our current.
Yeah,
you are a direct reflection of what we've sought out to instill into you.
Yeah. Folks just gotta grow. Everybody in all areas, like, yeah. It's funny though. It's a funny world. Yeah.
So as we move into the next election, I think I already asked the question. I know that you are registered to vote. Mm-hmm. And I know you know how important it is to vote. If a young person was talking to you and they were undecided, what would you tell them about the importance of voting?
Man, so many things, and it all depends on how they say it. But say to this person, we're having a good conversation. I mean, honestly, always it's just the basis of, at the end of the day, even if you are not participating in politics, politics are participating with you. So that's always just like a simple like go-to that everybody honestly could say, because that's true. Like, I always remind folks that while we're having this conversation right now, there are people up in DC having a meeting about whatever laws and stuff that they want to set in place. So it's like, if, okay, in this downtime right now that, you know, we're sitting here existing, but then when it came to vote, you had time to put that person in who would have had you in mind when they were making those laws. You can't be upset when things turn out like, you know, how they do. And honestly, coming from my school, I have experienced those students who are kind of like, so be it. So it's kind of like with those, it's just more so like, the older you get, the worse it's going to get. Like, you're going to just, you know, realize that all the laws and everything, and also breaking down who's who. So something I did for my school, and maybe I would do with this student or this person, is understanding, say, like, you know, you do vote in your, what is that, the district attorney, district attorney. You vote your district attorney in, and that right there is somebody who, say, if your friend goes to jail and is the attorney goes, okay, does this person have to go on death row, or do they get, a couple years and some parole? You're going to want to go with that person that's in mind and thinking this person has an actual life and can probably be rehabilitated and can go back into society, and not some person that you just allowed the world to just pick in there. So also just breaking down and understanding who's who. Like, it does matter. It does matter, man.
No, it 100% matters. Your voice matters. So now that we're talking, so recently I told you I was appointed and became a councilman. Mm-hmm. That was something I might have thought about when I was a child, but I think when opportunity presented itself as an adult, I couldn't resist to have the ability to work for an organization in which I advocate on behalf of people that look like you and I, but then also to have the ability to directly serve and impact my community in that way, right? My question for you is, do you see yourself serving in a political or arena, or have political aspirations at this point in your career?
I didn't hear here, but yes.
Okay.
Yes, I definitely am interested.
Awesome. Yeah. I think that's amazing. I have been thoroughly impressed with the conversation we've had and the experience that you bring to the table. Honestly, I can say it's a breath of fresh air. And if we got to hand over the keys to you, the next generation, I'm comfortable with that, right? Mm-hmm. I'm good with that. I like to ask a couple fun questions. All right, so now you're home from school and you're transitioning into the work world. How does Kayla release?
I mean, I relax at home. I do enjoy hanging out with friends. Fortunately, I have been able to like kind of experience like, you know, just life in Cleveland, which was something that I kind of, as I was exiting. So release, I'm just hanging out with friends. We're having a good time. We're just moving around the city, just seeing what folks are doing. Love the creatives. If I'm not outside, then inside, probably like got my DJ board, some TV muted in the back, and just like playing music, just like relaxing inside.
So the music one is my absolute favorite. I ask every guest almost, what's on your playlist right now? Like what's bumping in your car, or what are you listening to when you walking around?
Man, I honestly can't even say anything off the top of my head, but I'll say I was just listening in the office to some Masego, and that was really nice. I was really enjoying that. Yeah, love Masego, always love Masego. And then also those that are just always in my back pocket. Samino, I enjoy anything alternative. Like, you know, just put alternative in front of it. I enjoy hip hop, put alternative in front of it. R&B, alternative, literally anything alternative, and then of course like some type of like neo soul or something like that, you know, for the spirit. So yeah. Awesome. Well, I'd be remiss if I didn't give a shout out to your mom, the Ramona Lowery. As a person, I mean, I gotta have her on the show, I think. Nah, you should,
because she's just incredible in the work that she's done in the community. Talking to you is just a testament to who she is as a person, and not only is she helping youth, she produced a great offspring. So shout out to your parents.
Yeah, definitely shout out to my parents. I always say that. I give my parents their props all the time. I often tell my mom, like, yeah, good and bad. I'm just like, I'm literally you. Like, you can't even say anything. So
again, it's been an absolute pleasure to have you on our podcast. And before we end, is there anything you want to say to the next generation listener, or to any listeners out there?
Man, I mean, to the listeners, all I say is educate, sustain, and then just like community, like collect, understand who's around you, know what y'all need to do. Also, try not to be so obsessed with the phones and all these resources. I'm also trying to figure that out. Like, it's so much I'm trying to figure out, but you got to disconnect from those and what is given to you, because it is not given to you in interest of you. It is given interest of profit. So it's like they will give you anything, and it's just like, can't put that in your body. So literally, exist, be free, read a book.
Words from a wise young person. To my listeners tuning in, thank you for listening to another podcast from the Cleveland Pulse. We are always happy to have you. And again, we are always powered by the Freedom Dreams Coalition. If I don't see you before the next time we record, I hope that you take the time to take care of yourself, and peace.